At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of IIS 2013 who gave us a chance to present our data in front of you. And greetings from India. The topic of my paper is tenofovir nephrotoxicity in resource-limited setting of Western India, higher rate of renal function decline, acute kidney injury, and progression to chronic kidney disease compared to Western data. As you know, India has the second highest population of HIV positive patients in the world, out of which now 600,000 patients are on antiretroviral therapy. Tenofovir-based antiretroviral therapy has been increasingly used for treatment naive and treatment experienced patients over the last 5 years, and this has coincided with the availability of generic fixed dose combinations in India. And we also have now the tenofovir-based single tablet regimens, which are now available for our patients. As we know, tenofovir nephrotoxicity is characterized by proximal tubular cell dysfunction, which progresses to Fanconi's syndrome, acute kidney injury, and sometimes to progression to chronic kidney disease. And as per latest data, tenofovir nephrotoxicity is seen in around 1 to 2% of patients. However, majority of data on tenofovir nephrotoxicity comes from either randomized control trials or from observational studies conducted in Western resource-rich settings. Clinical trials have strict inclusion criteria and tend to exclude patients with comorbidities, which hampers their generalizability to real-world settings like India. Data from resource-limited settings is sparse and is plagued by missing data, limited covariates for analysis, high incidence of loss to follow-up, and short follow-up. So the primary objective of this study was to determine annual decline in estimated glomerular filtration rate by the MDRD equation in patients taking tenofovir-based antiretroviral therapy and comparing it with patients on tenofovir-sparing regimens. Secondary objective was to determine the incidence of acute kidney injury in tenofovir-exposed population, which led to tenofovir withdrawal. Recovery of renal function on tenofovir cessation was studied, and proportion of patients who progressed to stage 3-5 chronic kidney disease despite tenofovir withdrawal was estimated. The study was carried out at Ruby Hall Clinic, Pune, which is a tertiary referral center for HIV/AIDS clinical care in Western India. We run a subsidized ART center over there. Electronic medical records of all patients are stored in our central database. We have taken patients who were either initiated on or switched to tenofovir-based antiretroviral therapy over a period of 4 years, from 1st March 2009 to 1st March 2013. Patients having at least one follow-up serum creatinine and creatinine clearance values were included. Patients started on tenofovir-sparing regimens, that is zidovudine and stavudine-based regimens during the said period were taken as controls. However, over the last 2 years, we have phased out stavudine and they have either shifted to zidovudine or tenofovir-based regimens. Age, sex, CD4 count, HbA1c status, serum creatinine, baseline WHO stage 4 infections were studied. Use of concomitant antiretroviral drugs like tenofovir with NNRTI or tenofovir with PI were studied. Serum creatinine was measured at baseline and every 6 monthly follow-up by the von Jaffe method. Glomerular filtration rate was measured at baseline and every 6 monthly follow-up by Cockcroft-Gault equation and the MDRD equation. Total duration of exposure to tenofovir was calculated in months for each patient. Tenofovir was initiated in the cohort only if the creatinine clearance by CG formula was more than 50. All patients who were wrongly initiated on tenofovir at creatinine clearance less than 50 were excluded. Patients having missing baseline and follow-up creatinine values were also excluded. Annual decline in GFR was calculated by both the CG formula and the MDRD equation. Acute kidney injury was defined as per the Rifle criteria 2002 as serum creatinine more than 2 milligrams per deciliter, creat clearance decreased to less than 50 ml per minute, or GFR decrease more than 50% of baseline. Patients with GFR less than 60 ml per minute 6 months after tenofovir discontinuation were classified as going into chronic kidney disease because as per recent reports, after tenofovir stoppage, the kidney takes at least 6 months for complete recovery of renal function. Presence of comorbidities which increase risk of renal toxicity like diabetes, hypertension, use of concurrent nephrotoxic drugs, obstructive uropathy, and urinary tract infection, recurrent urinary tract infection were recorded. Angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, NSAIDs, aminoglycosides, and amphotericin B were the nephrotoxic drugs studied. We have purposely not included Septran or cotrimoxazole in this cohort because it was equally distributed between the tenofovir sparing and the tenofovir containing regimens. Obstructive uropathy included conditions like renal calculus disease, urethral stricture, and benign prostatic hypertrophy. Entire data was analyzed by the SPSS software Stata version 18. One-way ANOVA test was used to compare GFR decline among subgroup of patients, and multivariable logistic regression analysis was applied to the dataset to identify risk factors associated with increasing risk of acute kidney injury in tenofovir exposed patients. This is the baseline characteristics of the tenofovir containing and the tenofovir sparing regimens. As you can see, the mean age is slightly lower in the TDF sparing regimens because they have been used for a very long time in India. The median baseline CD4 count is also lower, but it is not statistically significant. Rest, serum creatinine, mean GFR by CG formula, mean GFR by MDRD equation were comparable. The mean duration of follow-up on tenofovir containing regimens was almost 2 years or 21 months. As you can see, there were multiple patients in our cohort who had very low body weight. Almost 40% of our patients have a weight of less than 50 kg. Almost 60% of our patients come with a CD4 count less than 200, and almost 35% have a CD4 count less than 100. 79% of our patients were exposed to tenofovir with NNRTI, and 21% were exposed to tenofovir with PI. Almost 30% of our patients had extremely low baseline creatinine clearance of about 50 to 70 ml per minute, and they would have been definitely in the exclusion criteria of major clinical trials. Also, almost 35% of our patients had a low GFR by MDRD equation, and 2.2% were having extremely low GFR, 30 to 60 ml per minute. They were still included in this study because by the Cockcroft-Gault equation, their creatinine clearance was still more than 50 ml per minute. These are the baseline GFR values of our patients, and these are the antiretroviral regimens which were started on our patients. Almost 500 patients were on tenofovir fixed dose regimens containing tenofovir, emtricitabine plus efavirenz, and atazanavir ritonavir was the most common PI used. This is the chart which shows GFR decline on follow-up over the entire cohort. We have estimated GFR at 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and 48 months. As you can see, over the entire study period, there has been a consistent fall in GFR over next 3 years. In the first year, the GFR decline in the entire cohort was around 6.9 ml per minute. It then decreased, but it was still significant at 6.3 ml per minute in the next year, and it was 4.37 ml per minute in the third year. I want to make it clear that in HIV negative population in routine textbooks, normal decline in GFR is only 1 ml per minute per year. So it was much, much higher than what HIV negative population gets. We further made the data set into subgroups and tried to study if the GFR decline was higher in certain subgroups. The first subgroup which was done was a study between tenofovir plus NNRTI versus tenofovir with PI. As you can see, the tenofovir with PI group had a much higher GFR decline as compared to the tenofovir with NNRTI group. And in the first year, it was almost double. So the mean decline in GFR in tenofovir exposed cohort by the MDRD equation was 5.29 ml per minute per year. Mean decline in the GFR in the tenofovir plus NNRTI group was 4.18 ml per minute per year, and the PI group was 9.19 ml per minute per year. At the same time, we analyzed the tenofovir sparing population, and it was found that their mean decline in GFR per year was 1.3 ml per minute per year. We further analyzed different subgroups, thinking that some subgroups might have a higher GFR decline. The subgroups which are considered was age more than 50 years, male versus female sex, CD4 count less than 100 or more than 100, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, nephrotoxic drugs, or obstructive uropathy. Out of all these subgroups, only CD4 count less than 100 and diabetes mellitus were found to have significantly higher GFR decline. Moving on to acute kidney injury, in the entire span of 4 years, the number of patients who developed acute kidney injury was 36, which came down to an incidence of 4.8%. As you can see, the number of the time to developing AKI was equally distributed. Almost 60% of patients developed acute kidney injury within the first 1 year, and 40% developed it after more than 1 year. The median time to developing AKI was 8 months. The number of patients who required hemodialysis for renal recovery was around 8%, and the number of patients who died and the actual cause of death attributable to renal failure was 4, or it came down to 11%. We further went into a multiple logistic regression analysis to find out the risk factors which were contributing to increased risk of acute kidney injury in tenofovir exposed population. The risk factors which we studied were creatinine clearance 50 to 70 ml per minute, that is low creatinine clearance, CD4 count less than 100, tenofovir with a PI, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, nephrotoxic drugs and obstructive uropathy. Other than hypertension and surprisingly diabetes mellitus, all other groups had higher risk of kidney injury on exposure to tenofovir. How was the recovery? Out of the 36 patients who developed acute kidney injury, 18 patients completed 6 months of follow-up post-tenofovir cessation. In addition, 4 of the patients died, 2 were lost to follow-up, and 1 patient had to keep taking tenofovir alternate day for his hepatitis B co-infection. So we have data of around 25 out of the 36 patients. Out of that, after 6 months of tenofovir withdrawal, only 1 patient has serum creatinine more than 2 mg per deciliter, and none of the patients have required long-term renal replacement therapy as of now. This chart will tell you how the renal function recovery has occurred. As you know, complete recovery occurred in 4 patients. Major recovery occurred in 5 patients. Almost 9 out of 18 patients had very satisfactory renal recovery. However, 7 out of 18 patients, although they had a baseline GFR more than 60, never recovered their GFR more than 60 after tenofovir cessation, and they continued to remain in the low GFR group. So almost 7 out of 18 patients were either in the stage 3 or stage 4 CKD group even after tenofovir withdrawal. These are the baseline versus follow-up GFR values. As you can see, majority of patients on tenofovir are getting pushed from the 91 to 120 ml per minute GFR range to the 61 to 90 ml per minute GFR range on tenofovir. This is the baseline and the follow-up data when we closed the study. So in discussion, renal function decline in patients on tenofovir-based ART was much higher than patients taking tenofovir-sparing ART. Renal function decline was higher in tenofovir with PIs as compared to tenofovir with NNRTIs. Normal age-related decline in HIV-negative population is 1 ml per minute per year. So in effect, the eGFR decline seen in our patients or seen in our cohort is similar to that seen in patients suffering from nephropathy, either diabetic or hypertensive. The decline seems to be progressive over a period of 4 years. We have purposely not included the 4th year because we had very few data patients who had completed 4 years of follow-up. We also found a higher incidence of acute kidney injury amongst our tenofovir exposed population compared to those seen in Western resource-rich settings, where the incidence is around 1%. This could be attributable to lower baseline creatinine clearance, lower eGFR, lower baseline CD4 count, and higher incidence of comorbidities in our cohort. The recovery of eGFR after withdrawal of tenofovir is incomplete in significant proportion of patients in our cohort, and these are still at risk of progression to stage 3 to 5 chronic kidney disease. And finally, management of tenofovir nephrotoxicity in resource-limited settings like India is tough due to limited access to routine lab monitoring of eGFR, renal replacement therapy, and alternate drugs like abacavir. What are the drawbacks of your study? Obviously, it's a retrospective observational cohort design. We could not apply the CKD EPI or the Akin criteria to our dataset because our creatinine clearance values became traceable to isotope dilution mass spectrophotometry only in the last 1 year, but we will like to apply it in the future. Routine urine examination data was not available at baseline and follow-up for all the patients, and hence we could not present the data of tubular dysfunction over here. However, around 8 to 10% of patients who were on follow-up were having urinary abnormalities as well, and we agree that it could have helped us identify nephrotoxicity earlier. Although we tried to identify all factors which increase risk of renal toxicity, there could have been unknown confounding factor which could have been missed. Thank you.